I know you.
No.
How'd you get on my list?
I work for the federal government. My name's Jackie Quinones.
You're the lady who's been asking questions about me. The fish cop.
Monica Raymund is kicking butt and taking names as Jackie Quinones in the Star series Hightown. I caught up with Monica to talk about the first season, her character's journey towards sobriety, and the news that Hightown is coming back for a second season. Watch. So first of all, before we get into it, I want to say congratulations because Hightown was picked up for season 2. I know we're in a pandemic right now. Were you able to celebrate it all? Maybe get on a Zoom call? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to celebrate by connecting with my cast and the creator of the show, Rebecca Cutter. It was such a it was so exciting to hear that the fans love it and that we get to have another shot at telling the story and expanding the world.
And what kind of storylines can fans expect for season 2?
Well, I haven't read any yet, but I do have a good idea. We're gonna start to see the crime, like the drug crime ring sort of expand. We're gonna start to see it move from Provincetown into Hyannis and a little bit throughout Cape Cod, more into like the unknown cities. We're gonna see some new characters who are taking over. And I think we're gonna start to see Jackie, my character, become more and more officially involved in taking down the bad guys.
Yeah, and watching this show, it's so cool you get to play this really tough character, Jackie. And what were your initial thoughts of her when you read the script for the first time?
I was really intrigued by how messy she was and how imperfect, flawed, and dark. I wanted to explore, how kind of like these phases of life that all of us go through, sort of these messy, I don't know phases. Who am I? What's my purpose? And like living in that sort of immaturity before we really start to sort of know who we are. So when I read the script, I was just intrigued by like how she skirts the line of light and darkness, who she is in private versus who she is in public. And also like tackling that issue of sobriety for her. Like, what does that look like? Is it just like this final arrival to sobriety, or is it something that she has to deal with every day consciously?
And that's a really interesting aspect of the whole thing. I mean, what did you do to get into the life and mind of an addict? Because that's very intense.
It's very intense. I unfortunately have a lot of resources available based on some friends and acquaintances and family members, as I'm sure you know, some people who are suffering from addiction. And that is it's a very common issue now in the United States. And having resources like Rebecca Cutter and Gary Lennon behind it, who have their own story that they're public about in battling addiction. So I had a lot of support and a lot of information from that, just both from personal experiences and from the creators of the show.
Yeah, and it's very relatable to a lot of people. A lot of people know you from Chicago Fire. Everyone loves you as Gabby Dawson. How is Jackie different than Gabby?
She's extremely different. If you watch Gabby Dawson, you know that even though she's a bit of a ball buster and like she likes to break the rules sometimes, it's always for a good cause. It's because she believes what she's doing is right. And she's devoted to, helping people and helping save people. Jackie, on the other hand, is like, I like to say that she's one of the people that Gabby Dawson would try to save and she would try to help, She's suffering from alcoholism. She's making these decisions that land her like in a jail once, waking up in somebody else's bed. So she doesn't have her act together. And that's a very different experience than people who see Gabby Dawson, who does have her act together. She knows who she is. She knows what she wants. She's doing this career. Like when she wanted to become a mom, she committed to that. And Jackie is somebody who's like, I don't know what I want. What am I doing with my life? I'm just going to do what feels good. So they're pretty polar opposite.
It must be so fun for you to play such different characters, right?
Oh, it's the best. I mean, it's like what makes our job so much fun, It's like it's taps into that childlike imagination that we have. And to stay at play is kind of the whole point why I'm doing this. As soon as this stops being fun, I'll quit. Yeah.
Have you thought about that before? Like, as soon as it's not fun, you're going to quit, then what are you going to do?
I'll never quit because it'll never stop being fun. I mean, like I say it, it's like, this is the most fun job in the world, to be a storyteller, whether you're in front of the camera or behind the camera. Like, we're all getting, like, we're so lucky to have careers, like telling these stories that are coming from somebody else's brain, and like people want to pay you for that. It's amazing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Something about Jackie as well. She's part of the LGBTQIA community. So considering it was just Pride Month, and there's also this major call for diversity in television and in film when it comes to gender, sexual orientation, and in race. I mean, tell us how Jackie can be this role model for people.
Yeah, I mean, what's so wonderful about Jackie in the world of P-Town, which is an LGBTQ mecca, is that we're seeing how inclusive this community is in Hightown. Who she's sleeping with, how she identifies is very normalized in this world. You know, a lot of times you see TV shows or movies where it's about that person's sexual identity and their orientation. And in this show, it's not about that. That is a part of who she is, and it's a part of it. It's a characteristic of who she is, but that's not what the show is centered about. And that for me is like a pretty tangible step towards progress, you know, where we can start to normalize it in a way where now we can where that kind of acceptance and inclusivity is becoming a lot more common. So like playing Jackie, who's like obviously very comfortable as a queer woman, she identifies as lesbian. It's incredible because we're starting to see, I'm queer, and so I'm starting to see characters who are like me, you know, who love like me, who look like me on screen, and that's very empowering.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. How do you think Jackie would be doing during the pandemic? Because it obviously takes a toll on a lot of people.
No, yeah, it's especially difficult for people who might be suffering from any kind of impulse or addiction. You know, isolation is sort of the first step towards a relapse. So I think Jackie is probably, since she's so new in her sobriety, I think she would probably be drinking. She'd probably be drinking a lot. But if she were able to stay sober, she might be like, I don't know, outside walking on the beach, you know, and trying to stay away from the bars and the sins of the evening.
Yeah, finale's coming up, really exciting. Are you going to be able to watch with people on Zoom, or what's your plan for that?
I actually have a plan that might be forming. I'm excited. They'll have to follow me on Instagram. I will announce it in a few days. I will be watching the show Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm here in Utah, so I'll be watching 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And yeah, I'll be able to engage with fans. You'll just have to keep following me on Instagram, and I'll make an announcement in a few days.
Sounds good. And before we go, how have you been doing during the pandemic? How are you holding up? How are you passing the time? Any new hobbies?
That's really sweet to ask. I have been, well, probably doing the same thing you've been doing. Like cooking and reading and trying not to have too much anxiety about what's happening in the world. I'm trying to be outside. I just got here to Utah, and that's sort of the whole reason, was to get outside of the home and be in nature and try to find some peace and solitude, a little bit that I can find within all of this chaos that's happening.
Yeah, what's your biggest piece of advice for people out there that are kind of struggling during this time?
Well, I very much am cautious about isolation because it is a very dangerous place for mental health and various other issues. But for me, you know, I can spiral when I'm alone, when I'm isolating and I feel like I don't have much of a purpose, right? Or if I'm not like moving towards something. So connection is a really big advice I give myself and for others, is do what we can to be proactive, to connect with other human beings. It is really important to kind of keep our mind and our heart functioning and working in a hopefully in a peaceful way. So reach out to friends and family and connect.
Yeah, it's so important. You sound just like me. I can spiral if I'm by myself. So it's so important to connect with people and let people know if you're having a hard time, for sure.
Absolutely.
Monica, thank you so much for talking with me, and congrats again on season 2.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
people's